Did we ever do this before?
Nope.
Okay, I didn't think so.
We also didn't share a League Pass subscription until this past season, though. So
I feel like I would have made this analogy if we had done it before, and I don't think I've ever made this analogy before. If I have, someone out there, please feel free to let me know. I think, and let me preface this by saying I get why Zach Lowe, when he does his League Pass rankings before every season, why he comes up with some janky algorithm that he just like plops in numbers for different categories and that spits out, because to do a ranking of teams based on like how much you want to watch them on League Pass, the only appropriate comparison in my mind is like trying to rank different types of art, where it's like, that your 2-year-old's, chicken scratch that she does in daycare is bad. And then there's a lot of stuff that when you see it, that it is fine art, right? It took skill to do it. But like, you may look at one piece of art and absolutely think it's the greatest thing you've ever seen. I may look at that same piece of fine art and say, yeah, this completely is not for me, and vice versa. I really do think beauty is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to like what actually gets your blood flowing when you're like, ooh, that dude is playing that team, or vice versa tonight, and like so on and so forth. Because, and I bring that up because I'm just going to draft today based on my own personal tastes. I'm not trying to win any votes. I'm just thinking to myself, like, who am I most excited to watch this season, even if my personal rankings may not be fair, because like, let's say like, yeah, there's an objectively entertaining basketball player on an objectively good team, but I've seen a lot of them. I may not be as excited to watch that guy. Is that okay that I'm doing it that way, or does that violate the rules?
I feel like that's how you should draft. You should be as honest with yourself as possible as far as what you personally want to watch more than anything else this season. My question was going to be, if we did this draft midway through the season as more of a report card, it's more of what teams you're enjoying the most.
That's interesting.
Based off of last season. Who did you check out the most when it came to the Knicks are off or the Knicks are done?
Oh, last season?
Night? Yeah, this most recent season. Like if we were sometime in March, because I got to be honest, the common thing I found in the pregame pod is that a lot of people were tuning into the Knicks on League Pass because A, they couldn't believe that Tibbs had an offense that was like top 5 in the league, and B, they just like the Knicks were good and like Jalen Brunson was a thing and they wanted to check out what was going on with the team. So the Knicks would probably be on a lot of teams' lists, but as far as we're concerned, who did you tune into the most?
Who I tried to tune into a decent amount, and this is, I don't know what this says about me, because I'm just looking at the Eastern teams first. I tried to tune into the Magic a lot, just because I've found their team to be kind of fascinating. With like they had a ton of big guys and they had some guards, but the guards couldn't really shoot. Not exactly the most aesthetically pleasing team to watch. They certainly weren't a good team, but they were definitely a mediocre team, especially over like the latter 2/3 of last season. Most of the games that I found myself tuning into were out west, because as we were just talking about life with kids, on days where the Knicks don't play, one thing I was probably not doing very often, barring some exceptional circumstances, like, okay, Knicks aren't playing, I'm going to plop down and watch 2.5 hours of basketball anyway. I would get my watching in when I would stay up late and watch some West Coast games. I mean, I don't know. It feels so crappy to say the Lakers, but I did find myself watching. I watched a lot of Jazz basketball
because of Larry.
They always seem to be in entertaining games. Their games were often good because they weren't a great team, but they also they weren't tanking. I mean, late in the season, they kind of were tanking, but for most of the year, they were pretty darn competitive.
Your Jazz are my Kings.
Okay.
Because it wasn't even just that they were in every game, but it was like the scores were off the charts. This was also the first year where I actually gambled the NBA a ton, and it was just like every Kings over you had to take because you knew that, this team's going to not just score 120, but give up 120. So, that Clippers game last year where the final was like 160 to 157, and it was just one overtime that it took, was insane. And that was a consistent thing with their schedule last year. The Warriors were always an interesting thing because they have that comeback ability that goes back a couple of years. They were everyone's number one draft pick in drafts like this as far as League Pass was concerned, because it was like, oh, the Warriors are down 15. Let's see how quickly they come back. And only when they went to that starting five, that 5-man unit that would come back, is when I'd be interested in the team. But, I'm sure they'll come up at some point in this pod, but they're very stale last year. I know they were doing our power rankings throughout the season. We were always like, oh, this is the week that the Warriors are going to turn it around. This is the way that we take them seriously. And it finally took, the Lakers and what they became to put that to bed.
So a couple things. I think for one, we should do this exercise assuming full health.
So we're assuming health, yes. Are we also assuming?
I know where you're going. This is the other thing I was going to say.
Transactions that may occur. Okay. These are currently constructed. The roster is currently constructed.
We could say after we do our draft, we could say let's do a section of if this trade happens, roughly where would you put them in your? Would you have drafted them? Would you not have drafted them? We know the teams that we'll go over.
Okay.
It's fair.
It's fair.
Clarification question.
Go ahead.
Memphis. Are we drafting for with Ja or without Ja?
It's up to you. Do you want to watch the entire season, which is 20 games without him, and then
25
games without him, which means you get some Derrick Rose in your life?
You know what? I don't think it matters. I think I'm actually just as curious to see them without Ja as then when he comes back.
That's what you're drafting then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. You got the very scientific. Here it is. Here it comes.
Let's do it.
Love it.
All righty. So high card draw. John, your card is a 4 of hearts.
It's the same fucking card I got when we did the last draft. I think I made.
How about this? I'll redo it. John, your card is a king of spades.
No, I'm not taking the king. I got the 4.
Which means my card is a 6 of clubs. So John, you have the first pick.
No, you go.
Draft. I'm the commissioner of this league. Okay, of the Patreon draft league. Okay, and I have decided that you get the king and I get the 6. So there you go. You do not get to argue with that, or else I don't know. I'll probably just ignore it.
Oh, I feel bad.
Why?
I just because I feel bad because my whining worked and I didn't think it would. It was more.
Do you not know how the internet works these days? Whining works.
I don't know how the internet works, and
no, you don't.
No, man, yeah. Talk about things I am happy I have opted out of for the majority of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll just come out and say I don't think that there is an obvious pick. An obvious first pick. You have a look on your face. Like
I don't think there's an obvious first pick. There's very clearly a number 1 on my personal board, though.
On your personal board, there is kind of a number 1 on my personal board too, and I can't tell if I actually want to pick them first, because there is also an argument that they should be. Bottom 10 is too strong, but like not in the top 10. Because we are watching teams, and ostensibly when you watch a team, you would like to watch good basketball. And the team that I'm thinking of saying is probably not going to play a lot of very good basketball this year.
We're thinking the same team then.
But like, you know what? It's our draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm the genuine answer. Who am I most excited opening week? I'm going to make sure to tune in to watch him. It's the Spurs. It's Victor Wembanyama.
Number 1 pick was mine too.
And like, yes, there's a novelty factor here that may very well wear off in a few weeks, but like, I don't know. I still remember. My very quick story. I was bar backing. My first job in college, I was a bar back at McFadden. Shout out, long live McFadden's, 42nd and 2nd. for during LeBron James's first ever game. It was the 10. I think it was the 10 o'clock start against the Kings.
The Kings, yeah,
Kings. And like, I remember there was a manager. Well, I'm not gonna actually. I don't even remember her name. It was a manager on duty who kind of gave me a hard time sometimes. So I was nervous because my job at night was to cut the lemons and the limes, and I usually did that back in the kitchen. And I brought my little cutting board out like into the most recessed part of the bar that you could see a TV at, and I was cutting my lemons and my limes so I could try to see LeBron's first moment. Like that was, I will never forget that feeling of watching him in that first game, and then even to a slightly lesser extent watching him in that first season. That's the first one that comes to mind. I'm sure there are others. Like I don't quite frankly remember when Shaq first entered the league, but that probably would have been an object of fascination as well. But yeah, it's the Spurs. It's Wemby.
Ironically, Zion had a similar hype, but because he was hurt at first, we didn't really get that. And then it was like a mid-season debut that was then cut short because a pandemic happened.
What did he play? 25 games or something? His first
something
season,
like that. I remember the hype around his summer league game, not just because it was against the Knicks, but because it was Zion, his first summer league game. Then he got hurt. And it feels like that's been almost a butterfly effect of what was then to come, or more of a projection of what was things to come with his career since then. But the number one pick as far as league pass is concerned is I want to see what this Wemby thing is. And it would have been my number one pick if I had it.
And for what it's worth, I think there are some interesting young players on that Spurs team who I'm looking for. I'm looking forward to seeing Devin Vassell he's going to be in year 4. He is coming off a nice season. Jeremy Sohan, I think he's coming off his rookie year. Interesting player. They have
Reggie Bullock.
Of course. How could I forget Reggie Bullock?
Doug McDermott.
Listen.
It's going through the former Knick draft,
No, they have someone else that's like, Keldon Johnson isn't an entertaining young player, but I'm curious to see them and how they do. So yeah, that's my pick.